Chapter 1. Cold metal presses against my spine when I press my back harder into the floor, trying to give what little heat is left in my body to the boy shaking under my coat. Arden's forehead burns against my palm. His breath comes out thin and fast, like a bird trapped in a jar. "Papa," he whispers. "It hurts." "I know, baby. I know." The blankets are gone from the bed. Every one of them wrapped around him twice, tucked under his chin, tucked under his feet. My coat is the last layer, and it isn't enough. The window frost has crawled halfway across the glass tonight, spelling out exactly how bad this is going to get before morning. Footsteps thunder down the hall outside. Heavy. Fast. Not the shuffle of the night maid checking on the wing. My whole body locks up. Greer. He warned me 2 days ago that if the debt wasn't paid, he'd take more than the fire allowance. He'd take the boy's medicine next. I press my hand flat over the little brown bottle hidden in my sleeve, the one I bartered 3 months of kitchen scraps to get. The door slams open. I curl over Arden like a shield, waiting for Greer's voice, his cold satisfaction, the click of his cane against the floorboards. Instead, there's silence. A silence so heavy it has weight. I lift my head. A man fills the doorway, shoulders wide enough to block out the hall light behind him, and for one useless second I think I'm dreaming, because the shape of him is wrong for a steward and wrong for a guard and exactly right for someone I buried in my chest 7 years ago. Golden eyes. I'd know them anywhere. I've hated them in my sleep. The Alpha King steps into my room. Not a guard sent on his behalf. Him. My sense suppressant has worn thin from 3 sleepless nights, and I feel the exact moment his nostrils flare, the exact moment recognition slams into his face like a physical blow. "Ellis," he says, and his voice cracks around my name like it hasn't been used in years. I don't answer. I can't. My arms tighten around Arden instead, because whatever happens next, whatever this means, my son comes first. Soren crosses the room in 3 strides and crouches down, and I watch every hard line of the king soften into something I don't recognize, something raw. He reaches for Arden before I can stop him, and the moment his hands slide under my son's small body, Arden turns toward him instead of away, nose pressed into his neck like he's found something he's been looking for his whole short life. "You smell like the Alpha from Papa's stories," Arden mumbles, half-conscious, and my heart stops beating for a full 3 seconds. Soren goes still. Every muscle in him locks. His eyes come up and find mine, and there's a question in them I'm not ready to answer. A question that could unravel every wall I built to survive the last 7 years. "Whose stories?" he asks quietly. I open my mouth. Nothing comes out. Arden shivers again, and whatever else might have been said dies in the urgency of his fever. Soren stands with my son cradled against his chest like he weighs nothing, like carrying him is instinct rather than choice, and orders someone I can't see to fetch the royal healer immediately. "No," I say, finally finding my voice, pushing myself up off the freezing floor on legs that don't want to hold me. "You don't get to touch him. You don't get to walk in here after 7 years and decide you get to hold him. Ellis, you left me." The words come out sharper than I mean them to, sharper than I've let myself say them in years. "You left me, and now you want to play savior because a servant's brat happens to share your eyes?" Something crosses his face. Confusion. Not guilt. Confusion. "I never left you," he says. "I don't know what you think happened, but I never. Don't." My voice shakes and I hate it. "Don't stand in my room holding my son and lie to my face." His jaw tightens, and for a moment I see the king instead of the boy from the orchard, the one who could have anyone in the kingdom silenced with a single word. Then he says the thing that breaks every careful wall I spent 7 years building brick by brick. "You finally came back," I whisper before I can stop myself. "You're only 7 years too late." Soren's arms tighten around Arden, and his eyes never leave mine. "7 years too late for what?" he asks, and something in his voice tells me he has no idea what I'm talking about. No idea at all, and that terrifies me more than anything Greer has ever done to me. Chapter 2. The healer's hands are still on Arden's chest when Soren turns on me with a question that makes my stomach drop through the floor. "How long has he been sick?" 3 days. My arms are crossed so tight against my ribs I can feel my own heartbeat in my fingers. "He'll be fine once the fever breaks." He's had worse. Worse. Soren repeats the word like it tastes bad in his mouth. His eyes sweep the room, the bare bed frame, the frost climbing the window, and something shifts behind his expression. Something I don't have a name for yet. 2 guards arrive at the doorway. Soren doesn't look at them when he speaks. Move them to the east wing, the rooms above the garden. Now.
No.
I step between him and the door before I can think better of it. I'm not going anywhere with you. Ellis. Every kindness you've ever shown me came with a price I couldn't afford. My voice cracks and I hate that too. I'm not signing anything. I'm not owing anyone anything. Something flickers in his jaw, a muscle working like he's biting back a dozen different responses. When he finally speaks, his voice comes out low, careful, like he's talking to something wounded that might bolt. No price.
No signature.
My son is not sleeping on a frozen floor another night. The word lands in the room like a dropped glass. My son. He said it like it costs him nothing, like it's simple, and it's the least simple thing either of us has ever said to each other. I don't correct him. I don't have the strength to. They carry Arden to rooms warmer than anything I've slept in since I arrived at this palace. A fire already crackling. Real blankets, thick as a winter coat. I sit at the edge of the bed while the healer checks Arden's pulse, and I refuse every offer of clean clothes, every offer of food, every attempt Soren makes to have someone draw me a bath. I don't need your charity. It isn't charity. He's standing by the window, arms crossed, watching me the way you watch something you're afraid will disappear if you blink. It's basic decency, and you deserved it 7 years ago too. I flinch before I can stop myself. He notices. Of course he notices. He's always noticed everything about me. That was the problem. That was always the problem. What happened to your wrists? He asks quietly. I pull my sleeves down without meaning to, an old habit worn smooth from years of practice. Work. Ellis. Leave it. He doesn't leave it, but he doesn't push either. And for a long moment the only sound in the room is Arden's slow, steadier breathing and the fire settling in the hearth. Then the door opens without a knock, and Greer walks in like he owns the space. Ledger tucked under one arm, mouth already curling into the smile he wears right before he ruins someone's week. Your Majesty, I apologize for the intrusion, but this servant owes the palace a considerable debt for supplies taken without authorization. I've brought the ledger for your review. Soren's expression doesn't change, but the temperature in the room drops several degrees anyway. Show me. Greer hands it over with the confidence of a man who has done this 100 times and never once been questioned. Soren reads it. Once. Twice. These dates, he says slowly, start 3 weeks ago. Yes, Your Majesty. Ellis has been in this palace for over a year. Greer's smile falters. Just barely. Just enough for me to see it. An oversight, perhaps. Greer says, but his voice has lost its certainty. Soren closes the ledger. I want every record involving this servant pulled and brought to me by morning. Every transfer, every disciplinary note, every signature. Of course, Your Majesty. The moment Greer leaves, I feel Arden stir beside me, small fingers curling around mine even in sleep. Soren watches the gesture like it physically hurts him. Ellis, he says, quiet enough that I almost miss it. Is he mine? The question I've been dreading since he walked into that freezing room lands square in my chest. You gave up the right to ask that question. I say, my voice barely holding together, before he took his first breath. Soren doesn't argue. He doesn't demand. He just stands there, absorbing the words like blows he refuses to flinch from, and something about his stillness scares me more than anger ever could. I never knew, he says finally. I swear to you, Ellis, I never knew you were pregnant. I want to laugh. I want to scream. Instead, I just stare at him because for the first time in 7 years, I'm not entirely sure he's lying. Chapter 3. Arden's laugh rings out from the corner of the room, sharp and bright, and I nearly drop the cup in my hand. You're doing it wrong, Arden says, watching Soren attempt to plate scrambled eggs like the man has never held a spatula in his life. Wolves don't eat burnt eggs. Is that so? Soren's mouth twitches like he's fighting a smile. And how would you know what wolves eat? Papa tells me stories. I busy myself folding a blanket that doesn't need folding, because watching them together does something dangerous to my chest, something that feels too much like hope. What kind of stories? Soren asks, careful, like he's handling something breakable. About a golden-eyed alpha who promised to come back before sunrise. Arden says it so simply, so easily, the way children say things that shatter adults without meaning to. He never came though. Papa waits for him every year. On the road, the spatula stills in Soren's hand. I set the blanket down harder than I intend to. Arden, that's enough. But Soren is already looking at me, and there's something in his face I haven't seen since the orchard. Since before either of us understood what a crown could take from two people who loved each other. Later, after Arden falls asleep clutching a small wooden wolf carved rough and lopsided but unmistakably familiar, Soren picks it up from the nightstand and turns it over in his hands like he's found a ghost. I carved the first one for you, he says quietly. The summer before everything fell apart. I remade it for him. From memory. My throat tightens. It was the only thing I had left of you that no one could take away. He sets it down like it might break, and something crosses his face. Guilt maybe, or grief, or both tangled together too tightly to separate. Greer appears at the door an hour later with a stack of papers and a face gone pale under the candlelight. You wanted the records, Your Majesty. Soren flips through them without a word, and I watch his hands go still on one particular page. This is a gate log. His voice has gone dangerously quiet. From 7 years ago. I was simply following the archive request, Your Majesty. Why does a gate log from 7 years ago concern a debt dispute from 3 weeks ago? Greer says nothing. Soren turns the page toward me, and my whole body goes cold. A name. My name. A date I remember exactly, because it's the date I stood outside these very walls, pregnant and desperate, begging anyone who would listen to let me see him. Subject removed for making threats. The entry reads, I never made a threat in my life. Soren's jaw is a hard line. Who wrote this? Greer's silence answers for him. Leave us, Soren says, and his voice carries a weight I haven't heard from him since he became king. Something final and dangerous underneath the calm. When Greer is gone, Soren sits across from me, the gate log between us like a wound neither of us can close. You came here, he says. 7 years ago. You actually came here. I told you I did. My hands are shaking and I press them flat against my knees to stop it. I told you and you looked at me like I was inventing it. I believed you left me for someone else. His voice cracks on the words. I received a letter, Ellis. In your handwriting. I received one too. The admission tears out of me before I can stop it. In yours. We stare at each other across the small space. Two people who spent 7 years hating each other for a lie neither of us wrote. And the silence between us grows so loud it feels like it might crush the room. Show me yours, Soren says. I'll show you mine. I don't move for a long moment. Then I reach beneath the loose floorboard I'd forgotten, I still remembered. The same hiding place I used to keep my letters safe from Greer's searches, and my fingers close around nothing. Empty. The letter is gone. My eyes snap up to Soren's, and the look on his face tells me he already suspects exactly who took it. Chapter 4. The archive room smells like old paper and dust, and Soren stands over the desk with 2 documents laid side by side, his knuckles white against the wood. Read them again, he says. Slowly. I've read mine 100 times over 7 years. I don't need to read it slowly. I know every cruel word by heart. You chose the throne. You denied our child before he ever took a breath. Do not come looking for me again. His handwriting. His words, or so I believed for 7 long years. Soren's letter reads just as coldly. In a hand I would have sworn was mine if I hadn't lived every day since knowing I never wrote it. I took the Queen Mother's money. I'm gone with someone who can actually give me a life. Don't waste your pity looking for me. I never wrote this. I say, and my voice shakes with something between rage and relief. I would never write this. Neither did I. Soren's jaw is tight enough to crack. Look at the ink. I lean closer. The dates scrawled at the bottom don't match the water stains bleeding through the page. Stains that would have needed years to form, not days. These were written before we ever planned to leave. I say slowly, understanding crawling up my spine like ice water. Someone knew our plan before we knew it ourselves. Soren turns the page toward the candlelight, and there, faint beneath the wax seal, a watermark presses through the paper. A crest I recognize from formal correspondence I once delivered as a kitchen servant years ago. The Bell family crest. Maris, Soren says, and something in his voice goes cold in a way I've never heard directed at someone he once intended to marry. Someone hated us enough to write both sides of our heartbreak. I whisper, and the weight of that settles over the room like a held breath. Soren doesn't answer right away. When he finally does, his voice comes out rough, stripped of the composure he's worn like armor since the day he became king. Greer served as a junior gate officer 7 years ago. I checked the records myself this morning. He looks at me, and there's something almost pleading in his expression. Ellis, I never searched for you. After the letter came, I told myself you'd made your choice. I never once rode to that gate to check if it was true. Would it have mattered? My voice comes out sharper than I intend. If you had searched and found nothing, would you have kept looking? Or would you have given up the same way you did the moment a piece of paper told you what to believe? He doesn't answer, and his silence hurts more than any lie could. The door opens before either of us can say more, and one of the guards steps in, breathless. Your Majesty, the Queen Mother is on her way. She says Lady Bell knows more than anyone realizes. Soren's eyes lock onto mine, and for a moment neither of us moves, caught somewhere between 7 years of grief and whatever truth is about to walk through that door. Stay, he says quietly. Please. I don't answer him either. I just stand there, letters clutched in my shaking hands, waiting for the woman who tore 2 lives apart with a single order to finally explain herself. The doors open again, but it isn't the Queen Mother who steps through first. It's Maris Bell, pale and composed, her eyes darting to the letters on the desk before she can stop them. And in that single flicker of recognition, I know, she's seen these letters before. Chapter 5. The Queen Mother's voice carries across the hall before she even enters the room, sharp and controlled. The voice of a woman who has never once had to apologize for anything in her life. Whatever this is, Soren, I trust you understand the alliance with the Bell territory cannot withstand a scandal. Sit down, Mother. Something in his tone stops her cold. She sits. I watch Maris instead, the way her hands fold too carefully in her lap, the way her eyes refuse to meet mine. You knew, I say, before Soren can speak. You knew about the letters. Maris's composure cracks, just slightly, just enough. I found out after the fact, she says quietly. There was nothing I could have done that wouldn't have destroyed my family's territory. There was everything you could have done. My voice shakes with 7 years of buried grief finally breaking loose. You could have told him the truth the moment you learned it. You chose silence because silence was convenient for you. She doesn't argue. She can't. The Queen Mother's chin lifts, unbothered, unashamed. Yes, I arranged the separation. Ellis was packless. Poor. He would have weakened the throne, and love was never going to be enough to protect this kingdom. He is the mother of my son, Soren says, low and dangerous. He was an inconvenience, she says simply. I assumed you would outgrow him. Something in me finally breaks, quietly, completely. I stand and walk out before anyone can stop me. I don't go far. The orchard behind the east wing is the only place in this palace that still feels like mine. The same crooked trees where Soren once pressed his forehead to mine and swore we'd leave together before sunrise. He finds me there minutes later, breathless, like he ran the whole way. Ellis, don't. My back is to him, arms wrapped around myself against the cold. I don't want your guilt. I don't want your apologies. I want you to understand what those 7 years actually cost me. Then tell me, he says quietly, all of it. So I do. I tell him about standing at the palace gates, pregnant and terrified, begging the guards to let me see him. I tell him how they read his letter aloud, how they laughed while I begged. I tell him about signing away every right I had to protect the child growing inside me, about giving birth under guard in a house far from anyone who might have helped me. I tell him about every letter I sent afterward, returned unopened, about every year I stood on that same road on the same date, waiting for a horse that never came. I hated you, I say, my voice cracking wide open, because loving you never stopped. Every morning I promised myself I'd stop waiting. Every night I listened for your horse anyway. And now you're standing here looking at me like grief makes us equal. It doesn't. You lost the man you loved. I lost you, my freedom, my name, and every version of myself I might have become. Soren doesn't move closer. He doesn't touch me. He just stands there, letting the words land, letting them hurt exactly as much as they need to. I believed the letter because anger was easier than searching, he says finally, voice rough. I let my pride convince me you never loved me at all. That's not your failure, Ellis. It's mine. I turn to face him, and the space between us feels smaller and larger all at once. I kept the wolf you carved beside my bed for 7 years, he says quietly. I never once believed I'd stopped loving you. I just believed you'd stopped loving me. My eyes burn and I hate how much I want to close the distance between us. He reaches up slowly, giving me every chance to step back, and cups my face in his hand. May I? He asks. I give the smallest nod I can manage. Our foreheads touch, and for one suspended second, 7 years of grief hovers between us like something breakable. Then I pull away before our lips can meet, my heart hammering too hard to trust myself. Soren doesn't chase the moment. He just watches me, patient, aching. Behind us, footsteps approach fast, and the Queen Mother's voice cuts through the quiet, shaken in a way I've never heard from her before. Soren, there's something else. Something I need to tell you both. Her face has gone the color of old paper. I ordered the separation, she says, but I swear to you, I never ordered anyone to touch the birth records. Chapter 6. The Queen Mother's words hang in the frozen air between us, and for a moment nobody in that orchard moves. I never ordered anyone to touch the birth records, she says again, and her voice actually shakes this time, a sound I've never once heard from her in 7 years. Soren's whole body goes rigid beside me. Then who did? Nobody answers, because nobody standing in that orchard knows. Maris steps forward, and something in her face has shifted from guilt to genuine fear. There's one more thing, she says. I intercepted a letter after the birth. Ellis sent it to the palace and it never reached you, Soren. I read it. I burned it. The ground seems to tilt under my feet. You read my letter and burned it. I was protecting my family's alliance, she says, but the words come out smaller now, less certain than before. I don't have room left in my chest for her excuses. I turn away from all 3 of them and walk back toward the palace, because I need air that doesn't taste like 7 years of other people's decisions. Soren catches up to me at the garden door. Ellis, I need a minute. My voice comes out rougher than I mean it to. Just 1 minute where I'm not standing in a room full of people who decided my life wasn't worth telling the truth. He doesn't argue. He just stands there, close but not touching, letting me breathe. When I finally look at him, something in his eyes has changed since the orchard. Softer, steadier. I know the truth doesn't undo anything, he says quietly. I'm not asking it to. Then what are you asking? Nothing yet. He reaches up slowly, the same way he did before, giving me every chance to step back. I just want you to know I'm not going anywhere. I don't step back this time. His hand cups my face, warm against skin that's been cold for longer than I can remember, and when he asks permission with just a look, I close the distance myself. The kiss starts careful, testing, like we're both afraid the other might vanish. Then my fingers curl into his shirt and pull him closer, and something in him breaks loose, some restraint he's held onto since the moment he walked into my freezing room. The kiss deepens, hungry and grief-stricken all at once. 7 years of loss and longing colliding in a single point of contact. Cedar smoke and rain-soaked earth fill the space between us, and for the first time in years I let myself want something without immediately bracing for it to be taken away. I nearly ask him to mark me right there in the garden. The words sit on my tongue, dangerous and tempting, and I swallow them back down because marking isn't something either of us should rush into out of grief. Soren pulls back just enough to rest his forehead against mine. I will never use what's between us to make you feel like you owe me anything. Not the bond. Not this. None of it. I believe him. That terrifies me more than distrust ever could. A scream cuts through the quiet. Arden. We're both running before either of us decides to move, boots pounding gravel, and I burst through the door to find my son sitting straight up in bed, drenched in sweat, sobbing. The room was cold, he cries. The room was cold and nobody came. I gather him against my chest, rocking him the way I have every night for 6 years, and Soren kneels beside the bed, careful, uncertain, waiting for permission to be part of this too. You're safe, I whisper into Arden's hair. You're safe now. Soren reaches out and rests a hand on Arden's back, and slowly, my son sobs quiet under the weight of it. For one unguarded moment, the three of us look like something whole. A family instead of a wreckage of stolen years. Then a messenger appears at the door, breathless, face pale in the candlelight. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion. It concerns the healer who attended the birth 7 years ago. Soren goes very still. Hollis Dane is dead. No, Your Majesty. The messenger swallows hard. He's alive, living under another name 2 territories east. And he's asking to speak with you both immediately. He says the birth records were altered before they were ever filed. I feel the floor drop out from under me a second time in one night. Because if the records were altered, that means everything I've believed about my son's birth for 6 years might not be the whole truth at all. If you feel your heart racing right now, that means the story is doing exactly what it's meant to do. Make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on, because the next chapter uncovers something that changes everything Ellis thought he knew about the night his son was born. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let someone else know this story is worth their time too. Chapter 7. Hollis Dane's hands shake so badly, he can't hold his own teacup steady, and the sound of porcelain rattling against the saucer is the only thing that breaks the silence in his small cottage. I never wanted to disappear, he says, eyes darting to the shuttered window like he expects someone to be listening. But after what I saw that night, staying meant dying quietly instead of loudly. Tell us everything, Soren says, his voice steady despite the tension coiled in his shoulders. Hollis sets the cup down. Ellis was sedated, heavily, more than any birth required. Greer supervised the room. Orders came from the Queen Mother's private office, though I never saw her sign anything herself. My stomach turns at the memory of that night, fragments I've never let myself examine too closely. I remember being told there wouldn't be pain. I remember it being far worse than that. The consent papers you signed, Hollis continues, were signed while you were under sedation. That contract was never legal. You were threatened into permanent service before you'd even held your son. Something cracks open in my chest, old anger finding new fuel. Before Hollis can say more, the door explodes inward. Greer stands in the frame, wild-eyed, a blade catching the lamplight in his hand. You should have stayed buried, old man. He lunges past Soren toward Arden, who's been resting on the small cot in the corner, and every instinct in my body ignites at once. I move faster than I've ever moved in my life, putting myself between Greer and my son, shoving Arden behind me and toward the back door. Run the servant paths, I gasp, remembering the old routes from the estate. Now, Arden. Now. My son bolts, small feet pounding through the narrow hall, and I turn just in time to see Soren slam Greer against the wall, forearm braced across his throat, eyes gone gold and feral in a way I've never witnessed before. Soren, don't. My voice cuts through his rage like a blade of its own. If you kill him, the truth dies with him. Takes every ounce of restraint Soren has, but his grip loosens. Greer gasps for air, crumpling to the floor, and guards flood the cottage moments later to drag him away in chains. Hollis, trembling, finally speaks the words he's clearly been holding back all night. There's something else. Something in the birth record that never made it into the official file. I kept a copy hidden. I was too afraid to bring it forward until now. He hands Soren a folded page, water-stained and brittle with age. Soren's eyes scan it once, then again, and the color drains completely from his face. 2 heartbeats, he whispers. The words don't make sense to me at first. Then they make too much sense, and the room tilts sideways beneath me. 2, I repeat, barely able to force the word out. There were two. Hollis nods slowly. I heard the second cry myself. Weaker. Further away. I was never allowed to see where they took him. My knees nearly give out, and Soren catches me before I hit the floor, holding me upright while my entire understanding of the last 6 years shatters into pieces. There's more. Greer spits from where the guards hold him outside the door, apparently unwilling to go down without dragging every secret with him. The Queen Mother never saw the full report. Someone above her kept watching Ellis long after the alliance with Bel was secured. Someone who wanted that second child for reasons that had nothing to do with politics. Who? Soren demands, stepping toward him with a fury that makes even the guards flinch. Greer's mouth twists into something almost like satisfaction. Ask Lady Bel what her father does with unclaimed Omega infants born outside registered bonds. The room goes utterly silent. Maris arrives moments later, breathless from riding hard to catch up with us. And when she hears Greer's accusation, her face goes the color of ash. My father runs a private estate, she whispers. For children nobody wants recognized. I never knew. I swear to you both, I never knew. Soren's hand finds mine, gripping tight enough to ground us both against the ground shifting beneath our feet. We have a son we've never met, he says, voice breaking. Somewhere out there, we have a second child who doesn't even know we exist. I stare at the water-stained page in his hand, at the proof of a truth that changes everything I thought I understood about grief, about loss, about the shape of what was stolen from us. Somewhere beyond these walls, our other son is waiting, and for the first time in 7 years, Ellis Thorne is no longer willing to wait quietly for anyone to hand him answers. This is exactly the kind of twist that keeps a story unforgettable. And if it hit you as hard as it hit me, subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss what happens next. Tell me in the comments what you think happened to that second child, because this story is about to answer every question you've been holding on to. Chapter 8. Maris's father's estate sits behind iron gates thick enough to swallow sound, and the moment our carriage stops before them, I feel every year of stolen time pressing down on my chest at once. You don't have to do this, Soren says beside me, his hand finding mine in the dark of the carriage. I've waited 6 years without knowing he existed. I answer. I'm not waiting one more hour. The estate manager, a thin man named Corwin Hale, meets us at the entrance with a face already resigned to trouble. Maris rode ahead of us to warn him, and whatever she said clearly stripped away any illusion that he could stall us. Records, Soren says, no patience left in his voice. Every child taken in from Aldercrest in the last 6 years. Now, Corwin doesn't argue. He leads us through a hall lined with locked doors, and my heart pounds harder with every step, because somewhere behind one of them might be a piece of my own son I never knew was missing. The ledger Corwin finally produces lists dozens of names, dozens of children discarded for reasons ranging from politics to shame to simple inconvenience. My finger trails down the page until it stops on an entry from 6 years ago, matching the exact date Arden was born. Male infant, Omega presentation suspected. Delivered same night as registered sibling. No family claim filed. No name. Where is he? I ask, and my voice comes out steadier than I feel. Corwin hesitates only a moment before Soren's expression convinces him hesitation isn't survivable. Adopted out 3 years ago. A family in the Northern Territory. They were told he was an orphan with no living relatives. Take us there, Soren says. The journey north feels endless, every mile stretching my nerves thinner. And when we finally arrive at a modest farmhouse at the edge of a quiet village, I can barely make myself climb down from the carriage. A woman answers the door, kind-faced, cautious. Behind her, a small boy peeks out from around her legs, and the moment I see him, the breath leaves my body entirely. He has Soren's eyes, my chin, a gap in his smile that mirrors the one Arden had at that age exactly. Ren, the woman says gently, guiding him forward. These people have traveled a long way to meet you. Ren studies us with the open curiosity only children have. No fear, no understanding of what his existence has cost the people standing in front of him. Soren kneels down slowly, and I watch the king who once ruled with untouchable authority reduced to something achingly human in front of a child who has no idea he's looking at his father. Hello, Soren says, voice thick. My name is Soren. I'm Ren. The boy answers simply. Are you lost? No, I say, kneeling beside Soren, tears finally breaking free after 6 years of holding them back. We've been looking for you for a very long time. The adoptive mother, a woman named Delia, watches with growing understanding, her hand tightening protectively on Ren's shoulder before she seems to catch herself and relaxes it. He's happy here, she says carefully. He's loved here. I don't doubt that, I answer, and I mean it completely. We're not here to take him from the only home he's known. We're here because he deserves to know where he came from, and because his brother has been waiting his whole life without knowing he existed. Delia's eyes well up, and after a long, careful conversation on her porch, an agreement forms slowly, painfully, but honestly. Ren will stay with the family who raised him, the only stability he's ever known, but he'll know us now. He'll know Arden. Regular visits, open letters, a door left permanently unlocked between two families who never should have been separated by someone else's greed in the first place. It isn't the reunion I imagined riding north. It's better because it's honest, and because nobody's needs get erased to satisfy anyone else's grief. Back at the carriage, Soren pulls me close, resting his forehead against mine the way he did in the orchard. We found him, he whispers. After everything, we actually found him. We're not finished, I answer. Greer still has to answer for what he did. Maris's father still has to answer for running that estate. And you still have a kingdom waiting for its king. Soren's eyes hold mine steady. The kingdom will wait a little longer. My family comes first now. For the first time in 7 years, that word doesn't feel like a wound. It feels like a promise finally being kept. We're getting so close to the finale of the story, and I don't want you to miss a single second of it. Hit subscribe and turn on your notifications right now so the next chapter reaches you the moment it drops. Let me know in the comments how you'd feel meeting a sibling you never knew you had, because the story still has one more truth left to tell. Chapter 9. Arden's scream of delight echoes through the garden the moment he spots Ren stepping down from the carriage, and I watch 6 years of loneliness disappear from my son's face in a single instant. You have my nose, Arden announces, marching straight up to his brother with the blunt confidence only a child can manage. Papa said so. Ren studies him with the same open curiosity he showed me weeks ago. You have my eyes. They fall into an easy friendship within minutes. The kind that doesn't require history or explanation, just two boys who somehow already recognize something familiar in each other. I watch from the porch with Soren beside me, his hand finding mine the way it has every day since the northern farmhouse. Look at them, he says quietly, wonder still fresh in his voice even after weeks of visits. Like they've known each other their whole lives. They have, I answer, just not in the way that matters most. Greer's trial concluded 3 days ago. Soren didn't ask for execution, though the council pushed hard for it. Instead, Greer sits in a work camp on the northern border, laboring under guard for the rest of his natural life, stripped of every title and comfort he once used to torment people weaker than himself. Maris's father lost his estate entirely, its remaining children placed with families vetted personally by Soren's new council on Omega Welfare, a council born directly from the testimony I gave at the emergency hearing. The Queen Mother lives now in a modest residence at the edge of the capital, her authority stripped, her influence gone. She writes occasionally. I haven't answered any of her letters yet. Some wounds need more than words to heal. Maris gave up her claim to the throne entirely, choosing instead to rebuild her family's reputation through honest work rather than political maneuvering. I don't forgive her easily, but I've stopped needing her punishment to feel whole. Soren postponed his coronation indefinitely. He lives now in the small house down the road from mine, close enough to help, far enough that I could close the door whenever I needed to. He learned to cook eventually, though his eggs remain a running joke between all three of us. He fixed the broken chair in my kitchen with his own hands, badly at first, then well enough that it holds steady under Arden's constant climbing. Tonight, after both boys finally fall asleep in the room we built for them, I find myself standing on Soren's porch, the same nervous energy from the orchard rising in my chest again. He opens the door before I even knock, like he sensed me coming. Ellis, I don't wait for him to say more. I close the distance between us the way I did that first night in the garden. Except this time there's no grief chasing the kiss. No desperation trying to outrun 7 years of loss. This time it's simply want. Simply choice. Soren's hands settle carefully at my waist. Checking, always checking. Giving me every opportunity to stop this if I need to. I don't stop it. I pull him closer instead. And the kiss deepens slow and warm. Nothing rushed. Nothing owed. I want this. I whisper against his mouth. All of it. I'm choosing this. I hear you. He murmurs back, voice rough with restraint. And I'm not taking anything you haven't offered. We move inside, and what follows is unhurried, tender, built entirely on trust rather than instinct or urgency. Soren's touch stays deliberate throughout, checking in with quiet words between each step, and I find myself crying not from pain but from the sheer relief of being wanted gently after years of being taken carelessly. He presses his mouth to my neck, close to the gland that would carry a permanent bond if either of us chose it, but he doesn't mark me. Not until you ask me without any fear attached to the decision, he says against my skin. I want you to choose it on a day that has nothing to do with grief. I fall asleep in his arms that night without once listening for the sound of a door closing, without once bracing for him to disappear before morning. When I wake, sunlight is pouring through the window, and Arden's voice drifts in from the kitchen, laughing at something his father is doing wrong with the stove again. I lie there for a moment just listening, letting myself believe completely that this is real, that this is staying. We are so close to the final truth this story has been building toward from the very beginning, and I promise you it will hit harder than anything that's come before it. Subscribe now and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the ending. Tell me in the comments what healing looks like to you, because the final chapter is about to show you exactly what these two men choose to build together. Chapter 10. A royal archivist stands at my kitchen door holding a sealed box under one arm, and the moment I see the faded label reading estate records, private birth files, my hands go cold before I've even opened it. This was found in a storage vault tied to the estate where you gave birth, the archivist says. Lady Belle's father kept duplicate files separate from the ones he destroyed. We only just located this one. Soren takes the box from him carefully, and together we sit at the kitchen table while both boys play outside in the yard, their laughter drifting through the open window. Inside, we find Hollis's original notes, medication logs, and a birth registration form far more detailed than the falsified one filed publicly. Soren reads through it slowly, and I watch his face shift from concentration to something closer to shock. There's a note here, he says quietly, from the healer who assisted Hollis that night. It mentions your labor took longer than expected because you resisted the sedation twice. It says you kept asking about a second heartbeat before you lost consciousness. The memory surfaces slowly, fragments I buried so deep I convinced myself they were dreams. Being told to breathe, hearing Arden's first cry. Then, moments later, hearing another cry, weaker, further away, before a hand pressed something over my face and the room went dark. I remember. I whisper. I asked if there were two. Someone told me the sound came from another room. I woke up hours later with only Arden beside me, and no one would answer my questions. Soren reaches for my hand across the table, grounding both of us against the weight of finally understanding a truth we'd only pieced together in fragments until now. The Queen Mother truly never knew about Ren, he says slowly. She ordered our separation out of pride and politics, but taking a second child for private profit was never her plan. That came from Maris's father alone, using the chaos she created as cover for something far worse. It's a strange kind of relief, learning that even the person responsible for the worst decision of our lives never intended for it to spiral into something this cruel. It doesn't excuse her. It simply completes the picture, showing us clearly where each person's guilt actually belongs instead of letting it blur together into one shapeless wound. Arden bursts through the door moments later, cheeks flushed from running, Ren close behind him. Papa, can Ren stay for dinner? Can he stay every night? I glance at Soren, and something unspoken passes between us, an understanding built slowly over months of careful choices rather than grand gestures. We'll talk to his mother about visits becoming longer, I say. as often as everyone's comfortable with. He has 2 families now, and both of them love him. Arden accepts this with the easy satisfaction only children manage, already dragging his brother back outside to finish whatever game they'd abandoned. That evening, after both boys fall asleep under the same roof for the first time in weeks, Soren and I sit together on the porch, the sealed box now empty of its secrets, its truths finally spoken instead of buried. "I'm not the same man who let a piece of paper convince him you'd stopped loving him," Soren says quietly. "I don't ever want to be that man again. I'm not the same person who signed away everything just to survive," I answer. "I don't have to be that person anymore either." He takes my hand, and this time when he asks permission, I already know exactly what I'm choosing. "Mark me," I say, "not because of grief, not because of fear, because I want to build something with you that nobody can ever rewrite again." Soren's eyes well up in a way I never imagined a king allowing himself, and the bond between us finally settles into place, quiet and permanent, chosen freely by 2 people who spent 7 years learning the difference between being taken and being chosen. Love broken by pride can still be rebuilt, but only through truth spoken honestly and choices made without pressure or fear. Deception explains a mistake. It never excuses the responsibility to search harder, ask more questions, and repair what was broken instead of simply mourning it. This story reminded me that real second chances aren't given through grand apologies. They're built quietly, one honest day at a time. If this story moved you the way it moved me, make sure you're subscribed with your notifications turned on, because there are so many more stories like this one waiting for you. Share your thoughts in the comments below and let someone else know this story is worth their time, because stories like this deserve to reach every person who needs to hear them.